Morning, everyone. I will call the WTA Board of Directors meeting to order. If we could get a roll call, please.
Yes. Hawkinson.
Here.
Fortice.
Here.
Lautenbach.
Here.
Lilyquist.
Here.
Lund.
Here.
Sadu. We do have Executive Sadu with us. Stewart.
Here.
And we have a Donovan, Williams, and Darwin absent. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move down to citizen communication. Is there anyone online who would like to address the board? If so, please unmute yourself. Not seeing anyone. Not seeing anyone in the room. Any written communication we need to be aware of? Okay, wonderful. Moving on to the mission statement update.
Yes, thank you very much. And thanks to the board for being flexible to move this to the top. We have two friends that are here, and Alex from Whatcom Land Trust and Michael from Whatcom William Trees Project are both here. So thank you for putting it up to the front so we could get this done and they could get on with their day. So what this agenda item is, as the board will kindly recall back in, folks online hear me okay? No, we've been having, okay. Thank you. We put $150,000 in this year's budget with the thought of another $150 in 2025, but that was kind of placeholder to see, could we partner with Million Trees Project and Land Trust to preserve lands as part of a decarbonization strategy that would lower our carbon footprint and bring other benefits to the community as well. There are things like credit programs, things you can buy in, but most of those tend to not be local. You're investing and the money goes out of state and elsewhere. And since we operate here in Whatcom, we're trying to look at a better way of doing that here in Whatcom County itself and bring a benefit. So we started discussions with the Land Trust and Michael at Million Trees Projects and identified two properties through their efforts, not mine, that you see maps in the packets of location of those. The original idea was that the WTA would acquire the property and then work with Million Trees Project and Land Trust to put a conservation easement on it and so forth. And these gentlemen had a great idea of why go through all those steps. They can acquire and then they'll acquire the property and hold it and then put a covenant on it. We'll have the same effect and we don't have to go through all the machinations of that. So they identified these two projects. One is, as you'll see in the map, the Kelsey properties that are in, I'll say, Ferndale area that connect to a nature preserve. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, the Lake Gerald Wildlife Management.
Yeah, and I'll turn it over to Alex in just a sec to talk about those. And then another parcel that is up by Everson on Kinney Creek that is also near the Nooksack Tribe project that they're doing as well. So there's some good leverage points there as well, potentially inroads with the Nooksack Tribe. It also has U.S. Department of Agriculture efforts on it. As you know, the Linden Station, there's some potential U.S. Department of Agriculture money there. So there could be some good synergies with that as well, secondary effects on that. So the authorization for today would be to authorize us to enter into a non-binding letter of intent that's included in the packet. Then if that's approved, then we'll work on the necessary documents to pull that together and bring that back in August. Benefit for WTA, again, just make sure that's expressly clear because this is a unique approach, is that it helps with our decarbonization strategy that falls in line with the Washington State's their plan, which is the U.S. Or Washington Department of Transportation Carbon Reduction Strategy. It also fits within the other federal, state, and local plans as well. And so that's why we're authorized to spend money on doing this, and then having those second and third order effects, such as preserving and conserving, expanding valuable wildlife corridors and protecting critical water resources. I kind of rambled there, but I will pause there and I'll ask Michael and Alex.
Yeah, I would just say that we're really, we wanted to say thank you. I mean, I think this is a great opportunity for us to work together, and we're really happy to be able to find something that seems like it's fitting the objectives of Whatcom Transit, but also the goals and mission statement of the land testing project as well. So just thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have either now or down the road. If later this afternoon, oh, I should have asked. You're always welcome to reach out to me.
And ditto for us, we part of our mission is to bring organizations and people together to do positive climate actions in our county. And be a part of the process here. Help to facilitate.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Any questions from the board? That Paul?
Yeah. How many acres it is, each property?
Yeah, that's executive to do. So the property that is west of Ferndale, so it's sort of between Ferndale and the Cherry Point area, again, adjacent to the Lake Terrell Wildlife Management Area. That one is 51 acres that we are looking to acquire, and it would build off of an existing 20 acres that was actually the first property that the land trust had donated to us over 30 years ago, which is pretty neat. And it also directly connects to the wildlife management area that's managed by Fish and Wildlife, which is an 1,100-acre property. So previously, these two protected areas were separated, and this 51 acres actually builds a contiguous block between those two preserves. So that's the one west of Ferndale, and then in Everson, that property is just under 14 acres. And as Les mentioned, the previous landowners were really active using funds from the USDA's CREP program, Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program, to plant. They planted about 5,500 trees over the last decade on that property. A lot of them have done really well, but those only come with a 15-year sort of covenant to protect those plantings. And so after that runs up, a future landowner could take those out if they were like, oh, I'd rather use this for another use, either for grazing or put a home in a certain area. So the land trusts stepping in and WTA helping with funding on that would actually help us just sort of put permanent protections on a lot of those tree plantings that the previous landowner was dedicated to.
And the Kinney property, the one out in Everson, would be next year. So that would be subject to board approval of the 2025 budget, that 150. I wasn't sure if I made that clear.
Yeah, thanks for that information. I want to ask a couple of more questions about this. First thing, sorry, your voice was a little bit garbled and I didn't quite get it, but one was 50 acres. The other one, the one in Everson, is how many acres?
Do you want to?
14, yeah, you come up.
Sorry.
There's my phone right here. Executive to do. Yes, it's 51 acres that is west of Ferndale, and it is just under 14 acres in Everson.
So, I mean, would Land Trust own the property at the end?
Yes, yep. For both of these, what we are proposing is that the land trust would be the fee owner of the properties.
Well, I just want a full disclosure is that our interest is wetland bank. So we want to work with Whatcom Land Trust, of course, city, county, and Port of Bellingham. We are looking at a bigger picture for next 25 years. And I met with Alex yesterday as well on this topic. So this is great. I will support something like this, but I wanted to know that we should look at long term. It will definitely meet this board's wishes for decarbonization, but we could get a little more mileage out of that when we invest these into the public funds into these properties. so that we can gather 500-700 acres like this, starting from now in future, with that kind of covenant interests, that these things can be enhanced and used as part of the long-term wetland bank for Whatcom County. I just wanted to share that thought with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
I'll move that we support the letter of intent, the non-binding letter of intent with the Whatcom Land Trust.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion has passed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you, Alex.
We are moving on to a public hearing.
Okay. Okay, that's my item. I'll go ahead.
Okay.
And start with this. So
Wonderful.
I'm going to kick it off. This is going to be a presentation on the capital improvement program, and that's the foundational work for the transportation improvement plan, and that is the subject that is presented for the public hearing. So the CIP is not officially part of the public hearing. We're going to kick it off to make sure you have some background on that effort, so that you know how the TIP is developed. The CIP is the 6-year capital improvement plan for WTA. Goes from 2025 to 2030, and it lists a series of capital projects, obviously, in the next 6 years. We do have a team that develops the CIP every year. We have our CIP committee made up of Andy and Shonda and Josh and Audra and a few other people that develop a list of projects and then discuss projects for entry into the CIP. The purpose of the CIP is to give basically a plan of potential capital projects. There's more certainty for projects that we're funding in year 1, 2025, and those projects could then feed into the budget process. So just to clarify, the CIP is not a decision-making tool in the sense that these are projects you're funding. That is part of the budget process. So what we expect to do is those year 1 projects will then fold into the budget process, and you'd be able to determine which ones of those would get funded. So essentially laid out a document. Hopefully, if you have any questions, we can answer specific questions about projects that are in that document. We've also laid out the funding sources to help you understand what is being paid for by WTA funds, where there are federal funds we expect, state funds, local funds, and where there is undetermined source of funds. There are a number of projects where we don't know what that funding source will be yet, and so that will have to be determined as we move forward on those projects. So I guess with that, that's a quick introduction. Again, if you have questions about specific projects or funding, I'd be happy to answer those questions with the team here to help out with that. And I guess I'll stop there and hand it over to Shonda to talk about the TIP.
Okay, thanks, Tim. As Tim indicated, the CIP is the beginning of the TIP program, and we're presenting that for public hearing and then approval by the board, if that's your pleasure today. We do have to have this submitted to the COG no later than July 31st. So we have another opportunity. Both the FTA and WSDOT require that we prepare a 6-year plan to authorize federal funds for these projects. So the document on page 11 lists the projects from 2025 through 2030 and the associated expenditures. The document on page 12 also lists the anticipated or secured funding and the appropriate percentage that we're seeing with those funding opportunities. This doesn't have any fiscal impact for approval. As Tim said, the projects each would come forward every year for approval into the budget, but this does lay out the plan for us to go ahead and request federal funding.
Thank you. With those two presentations, I will open the public hearing on the 2025 to 2030 tip. If there are any citizen communications at this time, please unmute yourself and indicate so online.
We've received no written communication.
No written communication. Hearing no indication of participation online and seeing none in the room, I will close the public hearing and open it for board discussion. Oh, Michael?
Yeah, I just had a question about the hybrid buses. I know that we're unsure about what will happen the longest term. With regard to the hybrid buses, is there something similar to a plug-in hybrid? They have those in cars. I'm just trying to think about a way to bridge to electric more thoroughly, but without creating problems that we need for the infrastructure and such.
You know of any?
So yeah, Michael, the hybrids that we're actually purchasing now in the future, those batteries, they'll charge off the engine and they can run approximately, it's not a long range, but it's like 5 miles on battery. And then when the battery is exhausted, they'll kick back into diesel mode. The diesel charges the battery back up, but those are not plug-ins. Those are strictly a hybrid. We don't have anything that plugs in as far as the buses is full electric.
This is Les, I'll hop in on that. Next month, the strategic quarterly board meeting that we were going to propose doing it on decarbonization strategy, and we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the renewable fuel that goes into those. We've got some data that talks about how the renewable fuel plus the hybrid, the environmental impacts are very similar to electric over the next few years because of creating a few other things. But we can go in depth on that next month on the totality of the strategy that we're looking at this as we look at how the zero emission technology and hydrogen and other things start playing out.
All right, I'll move we approve the tip.
I have a motion.
I'll
Is there
second.
a second? Kim seconded. A motion and a second on approving the tip. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any. The tip passes. Do we also need to pass the capital improvement plan?
You can, if you would like. We are asking for approval, so if you're ready to approve, we are ready to accept your approval. You can give it a month if you want. So we have
Yes, please.
Is there any movement on approving the capital improvement plan?
So moved.
There's a motion. Any second?
Second.
Ali seconds. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Not hearing any opposition. The capital improvement plan passes as well. Thank you. We are moving on to the next section, which is the executive session. The board will now meet in executive session to consider site selection or potential acquisition of real estate as allowed by RCW 42.30.1011B. And the board will be in executive session for approximately 10 minutes until 8:31. The board is not expected to take any further action on this matter following the executive session. So we'll ask anyone that is not involved in this to please be excused for approximately 10 minutes.
Rochelle, you can close the breakout room.
Okay, moving on with the meeting in regular session. We have board action, G1 consideration of agreement with Western Washington University. Audra?
Thank you. asking that the Board of Directors consider approval for a one-year contract with Western Washington University for unlimited fixed ride and paratransit rides for a flat rate of $600,000 for basically school year, July 1st through June 30th of next year. A little bit in the background, it talks about the model that we had done before. I'm using an FTE model, and then we had moved to a per tap model, and that was 50 cents a tap. And we're doing a couple of things, or we anticipate doing a couple of things differently this year, and that is installing automatic passenger counters. And then Western is implementing a mobile credential, and we're trying to make that work with our UMO mobile credential. And it has the potential to really slow down boarding. And so we are trying to leave ourselves space to try some different things to make sure that we can not make dwell times and boardings worse over the next school year. And so we've moved to this flat rate, which is to accommodate the increase in ridership that we're seeing, which is about 5%. Are there any questions, comments?
I could just compliment Tim and Audra and Miranda for their job negotiating this with Western. It's been very confusing as Western's doing their changeover with their student IDs and the phased in, and how that affects boarding times and those kinds of things that they've worked really hard to get to this point, and really appreciate the effort that went into that, and really kind of more complicated negotiations than what I would have initially anticipated. They did a masterful job.
It's been great to work with. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions regarding this or a motion?
I'll move we approve the contract with the Western Washington University for the bus program.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is passed. Thank you. Next is consideration of increasing the not to exceed amount of KPFF's contract for on-call architecture and engineering services. Andy.
Yeah, good morning. We're seeking authorization to increase, or I guess exceed and not to exceed a contract with KPFF for some additional studies we have going on. So we're looking at doing a facilities master plan study, which will take a look at all the buildings and properties we have and coming up with a determination on what actually our needs are and what is available. We have an old outdated HVAC system that needs some work done to it. We're looking at doing a feasibility study for a paint and body coat. And our north lot development, we're trying to be proactive there and get a study underway, which would include a NEPA and some permitting to have access from this lot over to our north lot.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
The increased funds are budgeted. It's just a contractual adjustment.
I'll move we approve the contract adjustment with KPFF.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And Seth Powell raised his hand as aye. Any, Mary Lou raised her hand as aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Moving to consideration of authority to modify the purchase of 8 ChargePoint Level 3 chargers. Andy?
Yeah, so what we're trying to do here is currently we have contract with Gillig to purchase our chargers from ChargePoint, goes through Gillig, and then we purchase them. We'd like to separate out the purchases of our electrical infrastructure. That allows us to create a relationship with ChargePoint and deal with them directly, because now we have to go through Gillig and then Gillig talks to ChargePoint. So it's kind of a direct communication. It's more efficient on as far as timing. We can receive our materials earlier, and it's also a cost savings.
Thank you. Any questions? Scott?
First, I'd like a cost savings. Second, what, any discussions with Future Power and what's their availability of power for all of these charging stations?
So cost savings is minimal. It's like 25,000.
It's safe.
Right, 25,000. As far as our midway, which is our lot, just outside the window here, we have enough power there to fully do what we want to do on that lot. We are at this time trying to get some communication with PSE to see if we were to go all electric with our north lot, if there's enough capacity. We currently have a data logger on this building to see where we're at as far as if we were to do anything else with this building. That's a 30-day gathering of all the electrical outputs we have right now. But that's kind of where we're at.
So they're saying maybe they have enough power.
For North Lot, we don't have any communication with them as far as, because kind of how PSE works is you submit an application and they tell you if it's doable or not.
And I saw on the previous one that we approved, there's a NEPA. That's a long process right now. You probably know that, but like 2 or 3 years.
Yep, that's why we're trying to be proactive and get that going now.
Any other questions?
Then I'll move approval of the change in charging stations contractor. Is that what this is?
I'll second it.
Purchase authority.
I'll
Mary-
second.
Wonderful. So we have a motion and a second to modify the purchase of 8 charge point level 3 chargers. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That Paul indicated aye by raising his hand. Wonderful. Any opposed? There being none, the motion passes. Les?
Just big thanks to Andy and Devin, and they're thinking of, okay, how can we do this more efficiently? Looking at lessons learned that they had where you had to call Gillig and then Gillig calls ChargePoint and ChargePoint calls. And there's got to be a better way. And kudos to them for looking for efficiencies and cost savings in how we operate. Thank you.
Wonderful. Moving, consideration of contract amendment for trapeze annual maintenance. Josh?
Yeah, we'd ask you to authorize the general manager into a 3-year contract extension with Trapeze for our annual maintenance and some miscellaneous services in an amount not to exceed $900,000. Trapeze provides the bulk of our software that we use to run our day-to-day transit operations. They do our transit scheduling, our paratransit scheduling, even design the routes and everything. So pretty integral to our suite here. This would get us through 27. In 2028, we have on our scheduled work plan to do a market assessment and review to see if Trapeze is still the right fit. So this kind of aligns nicely with what we plan to do on market review as well. So.
And expenses are in the budget for this year. Some future ones would be subject to budget approval by the board.
Just to, would Trapeze have the ability to work with the system as far as maybe some of our smaller transit needs, like the Linden Hop experiment or whatever? Do they have ability to work with those types of demands as well?
They do, and so we did actually use the Trapeze software suite for the Linden Hop experiment. We purchased software there. And that was a great example of where we were able to take something that, because it's a suite of tools across both our fixed route, paratransit, and our on-demand services, we're repurposing later, in next year, the tools that we bought for the Hop to improve our paratransit services as well. So that ability for a rider to use their app or their website to review their rides and cancel them. Right now, they do all over a phone. So we're able to extend the suite to other areas. We've got a number of projects lined out over the next 6 years to enhance our use of that suite and to get more value out of it.
Awesome, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion. Any second? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I think Ally just beat you out, Mary Lou, so we
Okay.
have and Ally's second. But we'll vote now. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is passed. Thank you. Consent agenda.
Move approval.
I think Scott's batting 1,000 right now. On the motions. Anyone want to follow up with a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. We will now move on to reports from the board. The State Auditor Office Cybersecurity Review of WTA from Jeremy.
I'll just do a quick introduction. As you know, from prior briefings, cybersecurity, the effort is being led by Jeremy and Josh. We take a holistic approach that we're all responsible for. And so there's a lot of tests and things that go on with it. So it's an agency effort. I really appreciate Jeremy and Josh, the hard work that they put into to leading that effort and their get better approach. And so they've volunteered to enter into the state auditor's audit process to see how we can get better with this. As you know, from following the news, hospitals, water districts, it's all over the place where the threats are. And so I really appreciate them helping to protect us. So with that.
Thanks for that. And thanks for having me. So, yeah, last year, beginning in July of 2023, we engaged with the State Auditor's Office to do a security review of the WTA. That completed in May of 2024. So that was a year-long process almost. That involved interviews with both in-person and virtual with IT staff, and then a third-party penetration test on a subset of the WTA systems, and then also a review of WTA's alignment with the Center for Internet Security Controls framework, and how we adhere to that. So the CIS controls are 18 controls that we adopted in 2022, I believe, formally. And those controls all have a subset of items underneath those that have complexity levels that you try to incrementally improve and adjust upon over time. So from that review, we got a number of benefits. The SAO provided us a report on our implementation of those controls with kind of a heat map showing us where we're doing well, areas for improvement. We got a penetration test report with some areas for improvement as well. We had 6 high and medium findings that we're working to address currently. 3 of those are underway, and 3 of those will take a little bit longer. And then just the engagement in general with the SAO and a kind of an independent auditor, so to speak, was very beneficial to us. Helped us understand the costs, time involved, and having someone else kind of check our homework, I guess, was very beneficial. I guess a little bit on the costs. So the SAO contracted with a penetration test company, and we asked them about kind of how much that would cost and what that cost at the time, and that was $105,000, a little bit north of that, for about a 2-week engagement with that, and that was just a subset of WTA systems. So just to kind of get a picture on what those things cost.
And we didn't have to pay for that.
We did not have to pay for that directly. So I don't know if Josh.
Good point.
Well, I just mentioned for the State Auditor's Office, this is part of their performance improvement program that they have, and that was funded through a dedicated tax. And so they've been doing this and reaching out to a number of agencies, and there's quite a wait list. And I think we got on the wait list 4 4 years ago. So you can kind of see where that's at. But again, echoing a positive experience, and Jeremy's taken that list of outcomes and is working diligently to address all those things. I think I'm reassured by the outcomes in the report and where we stand with regards to our cybersecurity. I'll also note too that we just WISTIP is where we got our cybersecurity insurance through, and WISTIP got reinsured for cybersecurity, which is always not always a guarantee. And WTA also purchases supplemental cybersecurity insurance through our insurer. So we have additional coverage as well that is we're finalizing.
Any other questions? And I don't know if there's a direct tie or not, I may be speculating, but the premium for the supplemental actually went down some. And I think it's because of the efforts that these folks are doing and the agency-wide to answer, because you have to fill out how many pages of questions on your cybersecurity plan and so forth. And it actually went down this year. I mean, not by a lot, but it went down a little.
We're able to answer yes a lot more things this year around. So.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Appreciate the update on what's going on. Any other questions from the board regarding the auditor's involvement? No. Any other business to be brought before the board or announcements?
I could just say one thing, just
Yes.
Remember next month on the 18th, we only have one board meeting in July because of the 4th of the July 4th holiday. So the meeting's on the 18th, and that'll focus on, that's one of those strategic meetings that we're trying, and we'll focus on decarbonization strategy and how we're going to, what our thoughts are in the various layers and levels that go through that. Have a discussion.
Wonderful. So with that, the topic of the board meeting, we're hoping that everyone can be in person. Is that
to the extent possible?
To the extent possible, that we all are around the table together so we can have a meaty discussion around that topic. Anything else?
Happy for
Can I just add that
Yes.
the FTA shows up today in about 10 minutes to spend the next 2 days doing our triennial review. So we'll have that report out maybe in August for you.
Great.
It's very exciting, Mark.
Anything else to be brought before the board? Seeing nothing, I will adjourn the meeting at 8:55. Thank you.
Thank you.